the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Rebel Force Radio presents
There is only one way. The way of the Mandalore.
The Mandalorian After Show. After Show.
I have spoken.
I tell you, it is like the Mando gods were listening to the Rebel Force Radio After Show last week. They heard my plea. As I said, please, can we get some fantasy in this fantasy sci-fi TV series? Not that I didn't appreciate everyone's history lesson over our social media channels over the last week. Hey, Swank, it's just like what happened after World War II, you know? Hey, Swank, this is just like what happened after this war and that war, you know, in our own history. Yeah. Thanks, historychannel.com. I'm not interested in American history or world history when it comes to my Star Wars. I want fantasy. I want good guys and bad guys. I don't mind a small cabal of despicable characters working from within the New Republic to discredit it. But I do mind when the whole thing seems to be just awash in tyranny and less than desirable people. So I was glad to leave that plot behind for this, which I consider to be The Mandalorian, I think, just on all cylinders, all jetpacks were a go with this episode. So can't wait to hear what you all think about it. Can't wait to hear what this other guy, which we'll get to in just a moment, is going to think about it. But we will be taking your calls, monitoring the chat, and cannot wait to get your feedback on this, I thought, very, very exciting and worthy follow-up to last week. I liked aspects of last week's episode, but this one, for me, this is what Star Wars on TV is all about, and it's what The Mandalorian is all about. So let's get to it. But before we begin, we do have some breaking news for you, and here to bring that to you is, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. I didn't know I was going to be thrown right into the news department, so I just wanted to say, everyone who has been emailing or sending Jason history lessons, keep it up. Keep it up. keep his smugness in check. Because I thought last week was a fine episode.
Oh, I know. The question is, did I like this week's
diversion.
episode as much as you liked last week's episode? That's the question.
It was a detour. It was a diversion. And I thought it was very interesting. And you know, upon reviewing the after show last week, I felt your criticisms were maybe a little bit hyperbolic or maybe a little over the top, you know?
No.
But I'm not here to slap you on
close.
the wrist for last week. I leave that to our listeners, our listening audience, who are going to keep you in check, and I love that.
Now who's smug? Do you hear the smugness?
Hey.
It's flooding the studio right now, the smugness.
It's contagious. Look what you've done. You. All right, I'm just kidding around. But there was breaking news this week in Star Wars. And I'm actually getting caught up on new developments as they're breaking while we are actually on the air right now. But Damon Lindelof exits Star Wars. How about that for a surprise? That's the story. Above the Line broke the story, and Deadline confirmed it, that their top secret Star Wars movie over there at Lucasfilm, directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, has lost its screenwriters, Damon Lindelof and Justin Britt Gibson. So, of course, you know, I hear that C-3PO voice in my head, you know, here we go again. Here we go again.
Well, at least we can stop calling it the Lindelof film. All right. I think we're just going to call it the Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy film, because he seems to be the only one that's sticking with it.
What's wrong with just calling it the next Star Wars film? I don't even know who Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is, for crying out loud. Why was her name get to stank up the whole next project?
No, it's this dude right here on the screen.
Who?
Isn't it? Oh no, that was the writer.
Chinoy.
I'm sorry.
That's
that was the other writer. So the two guys on the left,
Right.
you got Lindelof in the middle there, and you got his the other writer. What's his name? These guys
His
come
name
and
is
go. Justin Britt Gibson.
Yeah.
So they're out, and Stephen Knight is in. But Shinoy is still there. The Ms. Marvel director is still there.
Yes, right. And so that project then is it's in turmoil, clearly. And we were sort of tipped off to this on Sunday, when somebody pulled Lindelof aside at some kind of I don't know, red carpet event he was attending or something, and they asked him about the next Star Wars movie. And he just said the degree of difficulty is extremely, extremely, extremely high. If the film can't be great, it shouldn't exist. That's all I'll say, because I have the same association with Star Wars as you do, which is it was the first movie I saw sitting in my dad's lap, 4 years old, May of 77. I think it's possible that sometimes when you hold something in such high reverence and esteem, you start to get in the kitchen and you just go, maybe I shouldn't be cooking. Maybe I should just be eating. We'll leave it at that. And he left it at that, all right. Apparently he split in February. And I just, my only real commentary about this is because, listen, gang, it's not uncommon for a writer to leave the project after he's been working on it. I mean, look at Gary Whitta, for crying out loud. How many writers were brought into Rogue One? Gary still wears that credit on his sleeve and says it loud and proud. And he takes a lot of ownership for that film and was, as involved as he could be during the time he worked on it. Same with the other writers of that film. But it sounds like Lindelof is making a clean cut. Doesn't sound like he's going to be looking for any credit for this next Star Wars film, because he said if it can't be great, it shouldn't exist. So my question is, Lindelof has said essentially he's condemned the next Star Wars film publicly if they're plowing through with the same idea. You know what I mean? Is Lucasfilm going to plow ahead with a film concept that Lindelof is condemned, or is everything going back to square one? And this new writer who's coming, he's a British writer. I'm not familiar with him at all, but Variety did break the exclusive tonight, just as we were going on the air, Stephen Knight to write new Star Wars movie. And everybody goes, oh, he's the Peaky Blinders guy. I don't know what the hell Peaky Blinders is. Explain. Swank.
Peaky Blinders? Well, I haven't watched the show, but you've seen it's an iconic look. It's about British, I believe, Irish gangsters in the 1920s, 1930s, I think. If you're a Peaky Blinders fan, you're going to be annoyed because I don't know. But I've seen enough of the clips of the show. They're all wearing those little newsboy caps. You've seen it. And the wool trench coats. I noticed the fashion more than anything else.
Yeah.
But he's written a lot of things. He's helmed shows for the BBC. The Peaky Blinders is seen on Netflix in the U.S., but that was a BBC show.
Now listen, Rogue One, again, I'm bringing that up as an example here, because that was a film in great turmoil. They bounced everyone and brought in Tony Gilroy to fix the thing, both behind the camera and the typewriter. And so we saw how great Rogue One turned out. So this doesn't necessarily condemn the next Star Wars film. I just get worried that Damon Lindelof said it's not great and it shouldn't exist in the state it's in right now. So if they're going to plow ahead and announce this thing at Star Wars Celebration in a few weeks, then how did they fix it so fast is my question. Or is it something entirely new?
It's not fixed. Okay, so just a couple of thoughts that I have on this is I don't think he's condemning necessarily the concept, because if he hated the concept, why would he have written the screenplay? He wrote the screenplay based on a concept.
Maybe it evolved into something beyond his control. We know that there are a lot of the wrong voices at the table when it comes to Star Wars productions. And it only takes guys like Jon Favreau and Tony Gilroy who have the drive and the clout to keep all that stuff off the back.
Okay, fair enough.
Or Ryan Johnson will play ball. and do whatever he's told.
Okay, fair enough. Let's say it has morphed into something else completely. They just announced the new writer. Let's say the writer was brought on board a week after Lindelof left. Maybe they had enough time to bang out another screenplay. My point is this enough to go on to announce the film at Star Wars Celebration? All they have is a release date. A director, and what we assume is a fairly new concept. Not even a concept that goes back 3, 4, 5 months. A concept that is likely, as you point out, something that morphed out of the Lindelof script, the Lindelof Britt Gibson screenplay, and is now taking on a new life with this Stephen Knight guy. Lindelof is turned off by it, doesn't agree with the idea, and therefore wants to go back to eating Star Wars instead of cooking Star Wars.
And
it's a good analogy. I like that.
But it just sounds like he's taking a high road. He's taking a diplomatic way out, because, I mean, he probably put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. And what I'm thinking is that it morphed into something beyond his control, and that's why he and Justin are bailing.
Now,
and this is right, if I can, I just want to get this off my chest.
Mm-hmm.
This is right off the heels of Bob Iger making public statements saying it's imperative to be very careful with Star Wars, very careful in the approach to the franchise. They said the reason they put everything on pause is because of underperformance in both quality and, well, box office, if you want to look at Solo and the diminishing returns throughout the sequel trilogy. And just the whole idea that it's quality over quantity. Iger is looking to cut back on costs associated with producing everything across the board, television, movies, and he wants to know there's confidence behind the concept before the announcement and the green light. And this doesn't give me any confidence. This leads me to think that we're back at square one. And
I think we are back at square one. Now, Michael here in the chat is saying, you don't even know if this film is to be announced at Celebration. Oh, no, we do. we do know that they're supposed to announce a film at Celebration. We have that on very good authority. So that's not speculating. And as far as over speculating, you're listening to a Star Wars podcast that does analysis, speculation, and theory. And that's what we do here. So
yeah, right. Everything's on the table, pal.
Right,
everything
right.
is on
but
the table.
But as far as you don't even know if this is the film to be announced at Celebration, of course this is the film. It's not going to be the Taika Waititi film. What other film would it be? There's that one other one that is still in existence. That's Sean Levy's film. But he's got to finish Deadpool 3. But I don't think that is any further along. All of our sources have said that this is the most far along Star Wars movie in the pipeline.
Oh, yes. And you may say things like, well, it wasn't officially announced and all of that. But I tend to believe that the leaks that came out about this project last year were coordinated and strategically pulled off by Lucasfilm insiders. You know, it was an unofficial announcement coming from within. Somebody on the inside was talking clearly because Lindelof definitely was attached to the project up till last month.
Right. It was never officially announced, but he was officially talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the other thing. That they don't officially announce anything anymore. You just have to read Deadline and Variety. That's the closest thing you're going to get to an official announcement until it's some big PR whoop-de-doo. It's just the way it is. I color me disappointed, not surprised. I'm at the point where I'm not going to believe it until I'm sitting in the theater watching it. That's where I'm at.
What you guys don't know, gentle listeners, is that the morning of this news broke late night on Monday about Lindelof leaving the project. Earlier that day, we were texting each other, Jason, FJ, Kyle, and myself, And just out of the blue, Jason bet FJ, was it $50?
$50. He tried to get me up to 200 at one point.
You bet him just out of the blue that here, I have it right here. Yeah, because it's all on the old text.
Uh-huh.
It just out of the blue, you're like, yeah, they're not going to announce the Lindelof movie at Star Wars Celebration. And right away, FJ's like, I'll take you up on that bet. And so I'm up late night working on Monday night, and the news breaks that Lindelof is out. And, you know, you think the first place you go is to like the trade websites or the fan websites. No, I go to my my messages here, my instant messages, just to pull up the info on the bet itself. And sure enough, there's the bet, you know. And so what is the status of this bet? Because I think that FJ may have a loophole on you.
He does.
The bet was specifically that the Lindelof film won't be announced at Celebration. Now, the film Lindelof was working on could be announced at Celebration. So does that qualify as the Lindelof
It absolutely
film
qualifies.
being announced?
No, I couldn't live with myself if I tried to get out on that technicality, the fact that he's no longer attached to that movie. But there has to be significant evidence that this isn't what our previous chat contributor said, another film that's in the pipeline that gets announced at Celebration. This has to be the one, and I think we'll know. We'll know.
Yeah.
If it's not Taika Waititi, yeah, and if they say Stephen Knight, yeah, we'll know. But if it's not Taika Waititi or Sean Levy, this is the movie. So, yeah, right. And Shinoy is the director. So I am going to absolutely pay up. If I don't think any Star Wars movie is going to get announced at Star Wars Celebration, I still don't believe that it's going to happen. I think there will be other, projects that'll get announced, but I don't think they're going to be announcing a Star Wars feature from the main stage at Star Wars Celebration. And I'm not putting qualifiers on the bet. It doesn't have to be main stage.
There it is, right there.
There it is. Max got it. FJ, I'll bet. I'll bet you $50 that Lindelof movie isn't announced at Celebration. I'll take that bet. You're on. All right.
And he says, what makes you think? What makes you think? And Jason, right away, those comments that he made on Sunday night.
Right.
That did sound like a white flag of an announcement. So,
yeah.
He was waving the white flag. And Jason knew it. Jason saw it. Well, we'll see where this goes. And it's kind of a bummer. So let's get into The Mandalorian because, wow, what an episode this week.
Oh, my gosh. Let's do it. Let's start with the tail of the tape here. Mandalorian After Show brought to you by Rebel Force Radio, of course. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We are going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 4, Chapter 20, The Foundling. Who is the Foundling? Maybe we'll answer that question throughout tonight's discussion. Directed by Carl Weathers. Apollo Creed. Stand up, Apollo. You got to take it. You did a great job with this episode. He sure did. He gave us a shorty. Runtime minus end credits. About 27 minutes, 40 seconds. Written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, the OGs of The Mandalorian. And, of course, those musical themes by Ludwig Göransson and that score by Joseph Shirley. Hey, I want to throw out something I really like about what Joseph Shirley's doing, because I know I've been less than kind to him. I love that every time Mando does something Mando-y, they play that ba-ding, that whistle, that stinger, that Mando stinger. And it makes me think about in a Bond film, whenever James Bond, well, then at least in the good films, whenever Bond does something Bond-like, you get the guitar riff. And I like that this has become sort of Mando's version of that. So I do love that. But man, the 80s synthesizers were killing me in this episode. Lord, I can see some of those Iger cutbacks already. I can hear them. I'm not saying that the guy's not a talented musician, but it's not the lush. It doesn't give you the lush film score vibes that Göransson was doing with the first two seasons.
Something just very special about Ludwig's compositions and his choice of instrumentation and his fusion of different types of music. He really puts it in a blender, ancient to the most modern. He's a really special musician, and it's hard to make comparisons with him and others. But Joseph Shirley, I think, is delivering more of a run-of-the-mill TV type of soundtrack, really nothing too special. And he has the whole toolbox of Ludwig's where he can throw in those iconic moment, the riffs, the segments of the music that work appropriately at the best times, and that still provides the flavor. But we definitely have a different cook in the kitchen, and I'm noticing it by the taste of the food.
Yeah. But I do love that Mando whistle, or I don't know what you call it, but it's cool. It's not that one. It's the It's the I can't do it. I can't do it, but it's like a whistle. Anyway, all right. Well, let's get into it. Of some things that I noticed right away with this episode. Oh, go away, Lindelof. We're not talking about. Hey, look, it's Tyler. Something that I noticed was in that opening where you got. Well, I guess people probably want to hear about all the Mandos training. I thought that was cool. I liked it. There were some oddities in there. At one point, they're just like shooting into the water. I thought that was a little strange. They're doing it for the kids in a lot of cases. The younger ones. I almost felt like this was field day. It didn't have the high stakes of what we've come to expect from when you're really, really training. And someone pointed out, I saw online, and I wish I'd have pulled the clip, but there is an episode, Jim, I'm sure you'll remember, of the Clone Wars, where Bo-Katan is seen observing Pre Vizsla in one of his camps as they're doing some of these types of drills. So apparently, if you go back and look at that, there's some familiar drilling going on with the Mandos.
This is true. Yeah. I recall the episode. It was a later season episode. I almost want to say it was that one Heroes on Both Sides, the one where Ahsoka decapitated like 5 Mandalorians at once. Oh, those are good times.
Yeah, those were good times.
Yeah.
So
was it called Heroes? No, was it called Heroes on Both Sides? I think it was. It's hard to keep all those titles together and stuff, but I try, man. I try. What I like about the shot that you had on the screen there, Jason, though, is it does indicate to us sort of the size of their ranks. It looks like there's about 30, 35 strong there. So it seems like, the band is getting back together, and the more the merrier. And
this covert seems healthy.
Yeah, right. Healthy and growing. And they have some serious warrior power amongst their ranks with Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and Grogu. And the armor, we know she can hold her own. Paz Vizsla, yeah, he's okay. Oh, did you with the small head comment last week? I couldn't get that out of my head the whole time I'm watching this episode. Like, look at that shrunken head. Look at that little tiny skull on that Paz Vizsla. Can't think of a helmet that actually fits. That thing looks tight on him. Tight.
It really does. Tight. But I think we're gonna have another problem. And so I loved the whole bit on the beach with Grogu and Din. And I was trying to think, like, are they trying to tell us something or teach us something here? And the thought that kept coming to me was that this is one way to look at this, is that it really shines a light on the difference between the way Grogu sees the world and the way Mando sees the world. Mando comes out and very much on the surface looks and sees Grogu sitting with rocks, playing with rocks. He doesn't even know that they're crabs.
Right.
But Grogu does. We, as the audience, aren't even sure at first what they are, that they're crabs. So it makes me think that despite the fact that Grogu is in training to become a Mandalorian, there are big differences between Grogu and the rest of the Mandalorians and Din. You know, I think that his senses are much more attuned by being so force sensitive. Who knows? He may be the result of some kind of experiment to where he's more force sensitive than we could possibly imagine. So the question is,
you're triggering a thought here.
Yeah.
And I need to look at it because I need to repeat what I read today exactly the way it's worded. Here it is. This is from Casimir, who is an RFR Patreon patron. And he says the theory he likes the best is the Yoda Yaddle Grogu species is an extremely rare creature in the galaxy that do not reproduce biologically, but rather are manifested by the Force every few hundred years. There are no Yodas out there who are not extremely Force powerful. They are created in response to a seismic Force event, most recent being Anakin Skywalker's birth, which we talked about last week on the show. Grogu and Anakin Skywalker share the same birth year, and that can't be coincidence. And so this helps direct the will of the Force in the natural material world. But I like that idea, you know? I mean, like every 100 years, 200 years or so, it's like, oh man, it's another Yoda. Wow.
Does it hatch? Does it come out of a
pod?
What does it?
Where does it come from? That's a good question. Does he just like pop out of a lightsaber or something? You know? Well, how does it work? Is it a pod? Ooh, that's creepy. I hate to think of a pod like that. Or maybe it's the responsibility. No, that doesn't work either. I was going to say maybe it's the responsibility of the Yodas who currently exist to procreate, to keep the, and that could be the case because we have Yoda and Yaddle, right?
Right.
So maybe that's just how they keep the ball moving generationally. Is that, you know, the two exist, always two exist. You know, that's a Star Wars thing. Always two there are,
right.
A Mutta and a Fada. And so they get together and they bang nasties, and the next thing you know, Grogu's here. Grogu is literally Yoda and Yaddle's son. I love this idea. That is amazing. And if you want to see what that would look like, we have these Disney Plus subscriptions. We also have accessibility to the National Geographic channel. So go there and do a search of frogs mating, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Oh,
back to you.
Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm still scarred by watching those nature documentaries back in the day. The white frothy mass dripping from the dirty frogs.
Ew, all right. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Wild Kingdom. That's what we're talking about.
What have I done?
All right.
I thought we were going to move on.
Okay. All right. So I think the difference between Grogu and the Mandos I think the differences are really starting to show. I also don't feel that Grogu is showing any great desire to be a warrior. And I know he's a baby. I know he's a kid. But you'll notice that he springs to action when Din is in trouble, someone he cares about is in trouble. The rest of the time, it's pretty latent. It's dialed back. And to be a Mandalorian, I mean, look at the other Foundling. Look at Ragnar Vizsla. You know, he's aggressive, cocksure, maybe a little bit too much. He gets scolded by his father and by Din Djarin as he's looking at Grogu saying, he doesn't have a helmet. He's too little. I don't know. I'm going to wipe the floor with him. I think that's sort of the moxie that it takes to be a Mandalorian, and I don't think that Grogu has it. And we'll get into later on when he gets the armor, and there's just some real practical reasons why I still don't think being a Mandalorian is in Grogu's future. I just don't see it.
And he doesn't seem to really be so sold on the idea of being a Jedi either, or being connected to the Force. He doesn't use the Force at all this episode, does he?
Yes, he does when he's doing the face-off with
I
Ragnar.
guess he does the flip over him.
He does flip. He does flip.
Of course he does. Of course he does. See, the reason I'm saying that is because at the beginning when he was there with those little sand crabs, I thought he was honing his Force skills by levitating the stones. Favorite Jedi pastime. And then it's revealed that no, those aren't stones, those are shells, and those are crabs, and they're moving on their own, and he's not doing anything.
Right.
Then I'm like, well, maybe that's supposed to tell us something, like, that we expect him to use the Force, but he's not necessarily going to be using it. And that's what I thought. But there's also another time when he may have connected to the Force too. But I'll get to that later in the episode when we get to that moment.
Yeah, Michael is. I think he's asking the right question. Does anybody really see them covering up that face with a Mando helmet?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's not happening. Again, there's a lot of reasons to believe that this is not going to happen. It's still, I'm interested because I feel as though there's definitely a place for Grogu. Obviously, Star Wars is all about destiny, and everyone's destiny plays a role in the unfolding of the universe. I believe that. But I don't think they have figured his out. And I might go so far as to say I don't think the writers have necessarily figured out his destiny, and that's okay. I don't expect them to have an ending. I don't want this to turn into Ahsoka Part 2, what's her fate, all of that. And he's got a lot of time to figure all this stuff out. But it is going to, I think, become, I hope, a recurring issue to where he just doesn't fit.
Well, I'll tell you this about the helmet. And of course not. You're not going to have him put on a Mandalorian helmet and abide by the orthodox rules of the Children of the Watch. That's never going to happen because you just said it yourself. Look at that face. Look at those cheeks. I want to pinch him. You can't. Maybe he can have a helmet. I'm not saying he won't get a helmet. But maybe the Children of the Watch, maybe the covert itself will go through a series of evolution where they'll start abandoning all of these orthodox ways. And the reason why I think that could happen is the growing stature of Bo-Katan. And as we know, she never lived by that particular part of the creed. She was fine with taking helmets off. The Death Watch were fine with taking helmets off. Mandalorians have proven that they can exist without the helmets on. But I mean, it's, but also it's a religious thing. I get that, a lot of religions and cultures, headwear can be very specific to spirituality, especially when you start talking about very orthodox faiths. So I think that is kind of part of what the Children of the Watch are all about. However, I think that they could go through a series of changes. And I think Bo-Katan might be the one who will plant those seeds and show them there is another way. So we'll see. Because you can't put a bucket on that cute little face. No, you cannot. Not permanently.
No, and even if you could, I mean, think about this. Even if you got the best costume designer in the world to create a set of armor for Grogu, it would get laughs. It would be ridiculous. I mean, just him wearing those darts on his wrist is somewhat comical.
Yes, that did look kind of silly. But, I really thought it was a very cool part about the Mandalorian culture we were learning, and about foundlings and very young Mandalorians, and how they're given their armor at such a young age and they grow into it,
Yeah.
And I thought that's really, really cool. And this episode gave us the direction, the path for Baby Yoda. Grogu, and this is what Din says, Grogu needs to rise from foundling to apprentice.
Mm.
And so he needs to become an apprentice. And that's the next step for him. And then how far into your apprenticeship do you get until you start reciting the creed and they give you a helmet? Looking at
Well,
Baby
you have
Yoda,
to be able to
I think
speak, apparently.
yeah, I think we're a few years away from that.
Can't speak the creed. So there you go.
So the development of Baby Yoda into a Mandalorian as we traditionally think of them, with the T-shaped visor, bucket head, and all that gear and stuff. I mean, that's a slow burn here as far as the storytelling goes, because he won't be ready for that for quite a while.
None of us will live long enough to see that happen without some. Maybe our kids will see it someday. I did like the line about one does not speak unless one knows.
Yeah,
unless you're on Rebel Force Radio, because we do that all the time, of course.
It is a good rule to live by. You know, sometimes it's the smartest thing to do is just keep your damn fool mouth shut.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, we learn a little bit about Bo-Katan's father. She says to Grogu when Mando is showing no hesitation in putting Grogu into that face-off with, I keep saying Ragnar. Is that it? Or is it Rangar? Ragnar, like Ragnarok. Yeah. He puts him in there, and look, Grogu, the looks on his face are priceless. He keeps looking up. He's like, what the hell are you doing? Are you serious? You want me to do this? You want me to fight this kid? I'm a lover, not a fighter. Look how adorable I am. And Bo,
it's like the school bully shows up. The school bully shows up at the nursery school. You know, it's like, hey, dude, you're not in the right. You're out of your lane.
And Bo says, yeah, my father. Don't worry, my father was just like him. Just wants to be proud. You know, dads want to put their kids out there and feel that sense of pride, putting them up against other kids. And so I thought that might explain a little bit, because we don't know how, at least in terms of on-screen Star Wars, I don't want to speak for the comic books and the novels, but we don't really know what happened to break up Clan Kryze. We don't. Right. We don't know whether it was the pacifist Satine that splintered off. We do know, according to Bo, that her father was a warrior.
Yep. And so, and the father was very proud of her.
Very proud.
When she took the creed, when she recited the creed.
So who left
and
who?
She even, I'm sorry?
I was just saying, so who left who? Was it Satine that went off? Or was it Bo that went off? Bo and her father that went off? We don't really know exactly.
It's Bo and her father, because they went, the Death Watch were exiled to the moon of Concordia, while Satine Kryze, she ruled from the throne on the planet Mandalore.
When they decided to do away with their warrior ways and all of that.
Yes. And she promoted pacifism.
Right.
To the planet, which many embraced, you know. They all got gray jumpsuits and shaved their heads and walked around like it looked like THX 1138 a little bit, but if you remember from Clone Wars. But
so think of what's going through Bo's head a little bit here. I mean, she's seeing, I mean, the Children of the Watch are derivative from Death Watch. So she's seeing probably some of the same drills and exercises going on. So this has got to be a real trip for her, where what she sort of fought for a period of time, maybe even alongside her father, is now this orthodoxy that she went away from. So there's a lot going on under that helmet. And I'm liking this. I like that they are sort of giving us these little bits and pieces. And I also like the fact that we don't exactly know yet. This is why I was talking about last week, where it was like mystery, mystery, mystery. I'm so much more relaxed because we got to some big stuff here. We find out who rescued Grogu. We found out whether Bo was going to continue to keep the Mythosaur, seeing the Mythosaur as secret. We found out the resolution of that. So the fact that they answered a few questions before they started asking some new ones made me kind of really be able to enjoy some of the new mysteries that they're laying out. But Bo-Katan, the $1 million question for me on this one, Jim, is she still hiding something? We had FJ. He showed up at the end of last week's after show, and he believes, like a lot of our listeners believe, that she is hiding something, that she is perhaps thinking about trying to take over the covert. She wants to rule Mandalore, but she did come clean with the armorer at the end of this episode, saying she saw the Mythosaur. So does that put, and she's helped save Ragnar, does that put her out of suspicion for you? Or is she still...
No.
Is she still sus?
No, well, here's the thing. She saw the Mythosaur, okay? But nobody can back up her claim. Nobody can confirm it. When she presents this to the armorer, the armorer says, "Oh, you saw the Mythosaur, you're lucky. That's a noble vision." She's like, no, I really saw. But the armorer remains skeptical the whole time. She thinks, the armorer is thinking more in terms of, there was some divine moment happening when Bo opened herself up to the creed, and thus she was presented this noble vision.
Right.
And Bo's like, no, I really saw it. And us as an audience, we're like, well, we saw it. So what are we seeing? You know, I mean, sometimes
you called it though, Jim. Remember, you kept saying that it was some sort of, religious experience. Now, you weren't questioning whether it was real, but you were saying that it had a deeper meaning, that it was an epiphany of some sort. And here you got the armorer saying the whole thing was some sort of a vision, but definitely chalking it up to it being something quite spiritual and profound.
I believe the episode ends with the armorer not doubting what Bo saw. You know, she thinks Bo's telling the truth, but still with the understanding that it wasn't necessarily flesh and blood what she was seeing there. She was being presented with this vision because she was in the magical mines with the Beskar waters, you know? And also Din never said anything like, well, something pulled me down.
Right.
So remember, we were having that debate. Was he pulled in, or was it the weight of the Beskar armor that pulled him down? And the Mythosaur showed very little interest in Bo and Din as they were moving out of there. He just went deeper into the mines. So it's hard to even say as a viewer what we saw. We were seeing through Bo's perspective. So was it real or wasn't it? Listen, guys, I think it's real. I mean, that's where the story is. It's real. Bo is going to get into some sort of philosophical, theological debate with the armorer, because the armorer will continue to be skeptical about the Mythosaur. And Bo is going to have to prove it to them. And so she'll ride in on the Mythosaur with her helmet off. And then all the other Mandalorians, including little head Paz Vizsla, will all remove the helmet. Paz will be like, oh my God, thank God. This thing was like 3 sizes too small for me. But
I think he's still wearing his apprentice helmet. I think that's the problem.
Right. Or maybe it's his son's helmet. Maybe they got mixed up, you know.
Ragnar, did you take my bucket again?
This helmet smells of Ragnar. But so that's, you know, just jump into the very end of the episode. That's my interpretation of what's going on. I think it's still it's going to remain a mystery to Bo. I mean, Bo will have to prove it. She's going to have to prove it. And the way she's going to do it is riding that sucker into town. Look at me. And then she will be revealed as the one to unite all Mandalorians. And she'll be like, guys, the helmet is great, but look what it's doing to us. We can't even share a meal together around the fire. Like one of the most basic human experiences that the flipping cavemen were capable of doing. Sharing a meal around the fire. That's very important for bonding and everything. You know, what's going to unite the Mandalorians? Certainly not the way of the children of the Watch. because at the essence of what they do is that they build walls around themselves, and they have no human experience anymore. I think Bo is way beyond that. She's way beyond that. And she's down with the creed and everything, but it's the orthodox ways of the Children of the Watch that Bo will eventually dispute, prove wrong, and then influence to evolve into something entirely different. That's where I would take this if I was writing this show.
Connor on the chat just blew my mind.
What's Connor?
And it's a real simple idea. But he says Grogu will tame the Mythosaur. What if Grogu rides in on the Mythosaur?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I do not like it at all. Because he's not committed to the way like other Mandalorians are.
But does it matter?
I don't think Grogu has earned that. I think that's a cheap way to go about solving this thing. I think this whole situation is a bigger situation than Grogu. I think it has to be a real Mandalorian who has gone through all the trials and all the conflicts and everything to be able to ride that Mythosaur. And I think there's only one person, and that's Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan.
Yeah, so I'm
because
glad
if it was Grogu, then that would solve the problem of what is his destiny. He doesn't have to wear armor. He doesn't have to wear anything. He's a magical being, and he rode the Mythosaur, so that's good enough to earn some Mando credits.
I would wipe that off the whiteboard in a second. Because and you Swank, I go through this whole thing. I'm talking for like 5 minutes straight. I'm out of breath, blowing out the walls with this theory I have, and then you're like, well, Connor, the chat's really blowing my mind, and you put up 5 words. Grogu will tame the
always
Mythosaur.
blow my mind. You always blow my mind. You've got great.
Well, I need affirmation.
Theories. You've got great theories. Hey, here's one. She's still sitting alone. After everything she's been through, she's still sitting alone. I think you're absolutely right. I think that she's going to find this orientation of the creed to be lacking a lot, lacking a degree of humanity, togetherness. It's not what she wants. And I don't want to say that, because I've heard some people saying, well, look, this is comparable to, say, Orthodox Judaism, right? The men have to wear yarmulkes. The women have to cover their hair. Does that mean that they're not having deep relations? And I would say, well, it's a little bit different when you're covering your whole face with a helmet. But I think that there's something to this. We're not necessarily passing judgment on the idea as much as what is Bo-Katan's take on it. And I don't think this is going to be, I think you're absolutely right, a satisfying lifestyle for her for very long.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think she'll just expose the flaws in what they do and start to demonstrate some influence over the other Mandalorians. And the whole keeping the helmet on, it's like Sikh men, they wear the turban.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes,
it's a similar vibe to that. So it can be found in all sort of cultures and religions. And I also want to say, as long as we're drawing these connections, I'm not talking about any real world religions or anything like that. When I'm talking about Mandalorians keeping their helmet on, there's no allegory in any of my statements here. Because I condemned the Children of the Watch for keeping their helmet on, and I don't want, to contempt.
Right? No.
The real world for wearing
but it's much different from
demonstrates their faith.
I don't know of any real world religions or denominations or whatever where you cover the entire face, you can't see the eyes, you can't see anything. It's a very extreme way to live. There's no question about that, and it's really more about what is Bo-Katan's reaction to that, and is she going to settle for this, and for how long? Do you think that Ragnar and Paz would like to look on each other with their own eyes, as Darth Vader once said? I think so, quite possibly.
Islamic women are required to cover their face.
Yeah, but they can still show their eyes.
this is the way.
All right. Moving on from that, let's get into one of the more, I thought, surprising aspects of this episode, and that is that we finally got to see the rescue of Grogu from the Jedi Temple. And when that door opened and we looked into the face of Ahmed Best,
Yeah.
I'll be honest with
What a
you.
moment.
I'll be honest with you. I went, yes, I really did. I went, yes. I thought of anybody that was more deserving of this moment. I thought it was a great combination of, I don't want to say it was tongue in cheek, but a part of me like thinks it was a little tongue in cheek, but also I think a really great way to say it doesn't have to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. It doesn't always have to be a Mace Windu. By the way, at first I thought, oh my God, is that Crazy Mace? Did he actually survive? And he's the one? I watched it on my phone. I won't tell you where I was, but I watched it on my phone. So it was a little bit small. And I thought, oh my gosh, is that Crazy Mace? No, it's not. It is Jedi Master Kelleran Beck. First
You watched
seen
on the toilet?
No, I don't want to
That's
say
what
because
you
I get
watched?
all kinds of hell from everybody when I say where I watched it. I watched it twice. The first time.
Car, you have
First
to
time I watched
say that, man. I just heard about a truck driver that took out a family because he was watching videos while he was driving his semi.
Oh, well, I'm not driving anything that big.
So irresponsible.
I know, it's terrible. Anyway, that's why I didn't want to say it. But anyway, so when we see it, I thought, no, really, Jim, I know that some people say, oh, I was cheering. If you would have had a reaction video cam set up, you would have seen me cheer. I thought it was great. I loved that it was Ahmed. I love that. I don't even care. I didn't even know until later in the day that that was a character that was on the Jedi Temple Challenge. I think I saw 1-2 episodes of it. I didn't realize
miss anything, man.
It
was dreadful.
That's what I thought.
It was an absolutely dreadful production. And I think it was fake as hell. I think all the kids who were competing on it were actors. For those who don't know, it was playing Kelleran Beck, who is a character he played as when he started as the host of a Lucasfilm produced Star Wars YouTube kid game show called Jedi Temple Challenge. I put together a little glimpse of it here for everyone watching on the After Show Live. And there's Kelleran Beck, and he's in action here at the Jedi Temple Challenge game. And now they've made him a legitimately canon character here with his appearance in The Mandalorian. He has a little bit more flair on his Jedi robes in the Mandalorian than he does here as we're looking at clips of him. He's
I do
definitely
appreciate
more
the
made up.
trim. Let me see if I got a better shot of the beautiful trim work on his robes. You can
Well, Jason, I lost sound, buddy.
Oh, sorry. I hit the cough button and I forgot to uncough it. Yeah, so you can see in this photo here, you get a little bit more of that ornate design around the outer tunic, the collar. What I'm thinking, Jim, that this might symbolize that he's a teacher, and that is sort of his. At least that's what his Wikipedia entry says, that he dedicated himself to the teaching of the younglings in the Jedi Temple, which would make work with the character as he appeared on the Jedi Temple Challenge. But I like that he was more of a teacher type character, and he obviously would have been very aware of Grogu, and who knows, maybe they had a special bond, special relationship, so it was him. Now, you also hear in the scene the other Jedi saying, get him to Kelleran, get him to Kelleran. And when I watched it the first time, I'm like, what planet is Kelleran? Like, I thought it was a planet at first. I had no idea they were talking about a person.
I didn't quite make out that detail in the audio mix. And so when the doors open, I was like, oh, Ahmed Best. And he must be playing the same character he was playing in that dreadful kids show they produced a couple of years ago. And I'm like, this is great redemption for Ahmed. Number one, redeeming him from that terrible kid show from a couple of years ago, but also redeeming him from all that Jar Jar Binks hatred that he had to go through over the years, and put him in Star Wars in a place where we're seeing his face, we're seeing him in action, we're seeing him with 2 lightsabers. While I did enjoy seeing all the lightsaber duels, I think the Jedi choreography is desperately missing the guidance of Nick Gillard in this production, let me just say. But all in all, for a television show, it's pretty damn good. And it was cool to see it doing the double saber thing. But even more to that, I think about the chase through Coruscant, which was just beautiful to see in this episode, because, you know, last week introduced all the places, and this week it takes us back to those places, but earlier in the timeline. So we got to go back to Monument Plaza, to the train platform and tunnel. These are all the same places we saw just last week, but now they're being incorporated in an action sequence, which makes it different. And that action sequence leads us to the Naboo starship, the same ship that Padme had in Attack of the Clones. And now we know that Padme at this time, when the Jedi Temple is burning, she split. She went to Mustafar with 3PO and Obi-Wan Kenobi sneaking on board. But this Naboo starship, it's not that one. I don't think it's the
Yes,
same
it is.
one as that.
It is that one.
You're looking at
the yacht.
I thought at first this was the Phantom Menace, but now
No,
I see
this
it's
is Attack of the Clones. Yeah,
it's the same ship.
H-type,
I
Mac.
don't see,
H-type.
it's the same type. Yeah, what type?
H-type. H as in
H-type.
Henry. Yeah, it's the H-type Nubian yacht. Nubian,
Okay. We got a lot of those. But so, like, I think this ship is something that is traditionally used by the senator of Naboo. Okay.
Which one is the question?
Well, Padme, when the attempt was made on her life, Jar Jar Binks started representing Naboo in the Senate. So is that ship currently being used by Jar Jar to travel back and forth from Coruscant to Naboo? And is Jar Jar friends with his mocap brother? What's his name? Kilrin Beck.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Kelleran Beck.
Kilrin Beck.
Mm-hmm.
Kilrin Beck. Like I said, I tried to put that game show out of my mind completely, but this is canon, folks. So I'm
Man,
back.
my head was going in the same way. I was trying to connect these dots because Kelleran says to Grogu when he's on the speeder, "I'm going to get you to my friends. We're going to meet my friends." Well, who are his friends?
Yes.
His friends are the Senate guards. Now, the Senate has been, as far as what Palpatine has put out, the Senate was just overtaken, or there was an attempted coup on the Senate by the Jedi. So why would these Senate guards be helping a Jedi moments after this, or very soon after that, unless they're on specific orders? And that ship, as you point out, Jim, is specific to Naboo. There are two senators from Naboo. One is Jar Jar Binks. The other is Padme Amidala.
Boom. So this is where we're getting. I mean, things are getting kind of meta here with Ahmed Best.
Totally.
Ahmed Best flying Jar Jar Binks' ship back. And where's he going? Could the action be heading to Naboo? Could we be seeing Jar Jar Binks on The Mandalorian? I would not put that past Favreau and Filoni, not for a second. I think Jar Jar Binks is coming.
Me say your stepdaddy.
I just thought it was weird with the ship and everything, but I really didn't start putting this together until I was looking at the end credits. And I saw that the actor Juan Javier Cardenas he played the Senate guard captain.
This guy right here.
If he's the Senate guard, who's the senator? And then I went down the rabbit hole and came back with Jar Jar Binks, because I was like, well, Jar Jar was an ambassador. Yes. But then I did the research and discovered that because of the attempt on Padme Amidala's life at the beginning of Attack of the Clones, Jar Jar filled in for her at the Senate. And there's some dialogue about that. Just real brief dialogue between Padme and Jar Jar in her apartment, I think, if I remember correctly. I don't have the prequel dialogue as mapped out in my head as I do the original trilogy, but I seem to remember her saying something to him. You're in charge now. Jar Jar. Words you never want to hear anyone say.
Ambassador Binks. Yeah, that's when she goes into hiding. What are the last words you never want to hear? You're in charge now.
You do not want to hear that. No,
you do
want
not
to get out of that room.
You do not.
There are two rooms you never want to be in: a room where someone else is holding a gun, and a room where Jar Jar Binks is in charge.
Yeah.
Two rooms. Get the hell out of as soon as you recognize these threats. This has been
Hey,
a public
all
service
of these
announcement
clone
from the
troopers,
ad
by
com.
the way, according to the credits, were all played by Tim Morrison. At least
Cool.
the voices. Though
Couldn't
I
really
think
hear them. They're kind of buried in the mix.
Isn't that weird? I thought they made such a big deal in the credits of them it being Tim Morrison and going so far as to credit him. I don't know if he was wearing different armor and they just shot him multiple times to get the consistency and the size, or if these were all extras, or if it was CG. I really can't tell how these troopers were brought to life on the screen. But he is getting credit for the troopers
in any of those. I find it unlikely he was in any of those.
Yeah, I know, I do too.
Those in any of that gear, because I mean it was all pretty
spread,
much stunt. It's action stunt shooting. I don't know if Tim can put on a.
I think he can run out of he can run off that ship and point his blaster. But
have you ever tried doing that with a stormtrooper helmet on? Have you ever tried?
As a matter
running
of fact, I have
in gear.
In gear. Well, not running. They wouldn't let me run. Sometimes those 501st guys, not at Tim's age, but I tell you what, sometimes those 501st guys, they can just take it a little bit too seriously. Because I want to have fun in that armor. And they were like, no, you're representing. You're representing. You can't run. Can't have any fun with it. You just got to stand there and look serious. Anyway,
Swank did troop one time only, and that was at Star Wars Celebration 4 in 2007.
You can look it up. It's on YouTube.
He still has the pinch marks to prove it.
Oh, I do indeed. I do indeed.
How do I know?
All right. We got some super chats here. Want to get to those. John, very kind, says, just want to say hi. Love what you guys do. I look forward to your podcast every week. Can't stay and listen, but can't wait till tomorrow morning to tune in. Well, we appreciate it, John. That's very, very, very kind of you. And we're hoping that you're enjoying the show as you're listening to it. The next morning, here's Sal B. Crum. He never disappoints. They couldn't find a safer place for their covert. They're living in the damn land of the lost. Can't wait to see sweet, sweet Baby Yoda riding one of those dragon birds. Hashtag Tesla jetpacks coming soon. That's right. They ran out of fuel. You're not going to do that with one of those fancy Elon Musk jobs.
You know what? I do want to say something, though. Why? Yeah. Why? Why would they go and live in Jurassic Park, you know? But I mean, the armor does say something she says something that kind of backs up why they would live in such a hostile environment. She says Orthodox Mandalorians, like the Children of the Watch, define themselves by trials and adversity. So naturally, they don't want to be living on some beach resort planet.
Right.
They're going to go live in a place that will provide natural challenges, unpredictability, give themselves the exposure to the trials and adversity that define themselves. I think that's very important. This is the way.
This is the way. That's great. I did not catch that. That's a really great observation. I love that.
Because I was thinking to myself, I was thinking to myself the same thing, Why? What are these guys, gluttons for punishment? What's the matter with these people? But she lays it all out there. They define themselves by trials and adversity.
Fart party chiming in here. Cheers, buddy. Thank you very much. I got a little bit left in here. That's very nice. Always here, bringing the fun. Here's Classic Donut, guys. I'm not crying. You're crying. The Ahmed Best cameo in Star Wars history. Awesome to learn that Carl Weathers directed this short but very sweet chap. Yeah, I loved it. Home run all around for me. And I saw someone say on the chat, Jim, that we were saying that, or implying that Ahmed needed redemption for Jar Jar. That's not what we were saying at all.
No, I mean redemption for put him in a position where he has the opportunity to make some really important contributions to the Star Wars timeline, the canon, that, take him away from the Jar Jar Binks scrutiny. That's the redemption for him in his career, the redemption for all of the stuff he had to unfortunately put up with. That wasn't his fault.
Not at all.
Lucasfilm, they thought they were making something really special. Yeah. And here's some, wow. They thought Jar Jar Binks was going to win over families and children and everything. Well, they kind of screwed up that formula, but they got it right with Baby Yoda, with Grogu.
Right.
And so, wow, the cuteness factor in Star Wars, the one that's actually effective and works with fans and casual viewers and has become part of the cultural zeitgeist, that asset, if you will, is being protected by Ahmed Best, the guy who nobody in the history of Star Wars had to take more bullets than this guy.
Right.
For merely portraying a character from a fictional universe.
And being an absolute trendsetter. Andy Serkis, who put in a great performance in Andor, gets all kinds of credit, deservedly so, for what he did in The Lord of the Rings and really bringing the whole idea of mocap, to the mainstream. But Ahmed Best, as far as I know, was the first mocapped actor for a feature and as a principal character, character.
Without question. I think the closest they got to that was Casper the Friendly Ghost a few years prior. And that was pure animation. This was the mocap bringing a living, breathing character to life made of pixels. That had never been seen before. Not before, and he deserves all the credit in the world for being the guy, who was the first, really the first to carry that load and break grounds. And so look, listen to the way we're talking. The redemption is already being provided just by conversations like this, fueled merely by seeing him make a cameo in the Mandalorian. That's awesome. That's great. I feel really happy. I met Ahmed Best once. My interview with him is on YouTube, and he couldn't have been a cooler guy. I mean, what a nice guy. And I remember feeling bad for him when he was taking all that from critics and everyone with Jar Jar Binks. I just felt like he got dealt the from the bottom of the deck, I don't know.
Yeah. I can still remember seeing one of the first publicity shots of Jar Jar, and it was a shot of them on the bongo, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Jar Jar in the middle.
First trailer. Trailer.
And thinking, oh, he's the Chewbacca. That's what I thought. Oh, he's the animal like co-pilot of whatever this ship is. And I also, I think, realized I never hated the character. I was always kind of baffled by the people that really hated the character. He annoyed me, but you know what? Anakin Skywalker annoyed me a little bit too, but I didn't hate him. He had some goofy lines, but Ahmed's performance,
Jake took a lot of bullets too, so let's not pretend that didn't happen, but still.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, the hatred I thought was odd. People, I hate Jar Jar Binks. All right. Whatever. You know what? Let's take a call. We've got lots of calls here. Let's start off with Marty from Georgia. Marty's a Patreon supporter. Hello, Marty. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Hello. First caller in.
Hey.
No pressure, buddy.
Hey, shut up, fellas. Shut up. Oh, God, don't tell me that. The first thing I got to say is I am writing, what does he say to the kid? Those who do not know should not speak. I'm writing that on my board for my students tomorrow. That's the first thing I'm going to do in the morning.
One does not speak unless one knows. Yeah, write that on the board, Teach.
I am.
I love it.
This is the way.
That's going right at the top. And I'm just going to start all my classes by reminding him of that. So, awesome episode. My buddy and I were watching it together. I was like, wow, 32 minutes? Really? And then I was like, wow, that felt like it was an hour just because of how much we got from the Temple, Order 66. Again, grew up seeing Revenge of the Sith in theaters. So that was, I always enjoy seeing those different perspectives on Order 66. So enjoyed that a lot. Enjoyed the whole jetpack chase scene where they're fighting the big bird dragon thing.
The raptor.
All around, just awesome episode. My my only question is the kid, Ragnar.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the big Mandalorian's biological kid or adopted kid? Because if he can't take off the armor, you know, how do you know? How do you do that? How do you know?
You're saying they could switch kids.
How do you know that?
They switch kids on you.
It's just like, yeah, I like I said, great episode. Thank you for all you guys do. This is a very highlight of my week as always. Thank you guys.
Oh, dude, thank you very much. Thanks, Marty.
There's no indication to Ragnar's mother who that would be.
Mm-mm.
So I'm led to believe he was another foundling. That's what I think.
Okay.
They refer to all the children. They refer to all the children as foundlings. I think. I don't think they procreate. I think they find kids, you know, kind of like the Jedi.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are parallels between the Mandalorians and the Jedi that cannot be ignored, and that's one of them.
But, you know, I was thinking of Din as being unique in being a father in that sense with the others in the covert. But now knowing that he kind of shares this commonality with Paz Vizsla is pretty cool, actually. I like that Paz now has reason to trust both Bo and Din, because both of them were a massive part of saving Ragnar.
It's a dad club now.
Yeah.
It's a dad club, and it's really nice. Now, one more thing I have to say about Ragnar is, for some reason, the wildlife on this planet get triggered by this kid. You know, Turtle Gator. You remember Turtle Gator ruined his bar mitzvah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Turtle Gator ruined his bar mitzvah, and the winged raptor thought he was a Happy Meal for her kids. This kid, he must be pretty tasty, at least for the wildlife on this planet. But yeah, there's something about him that is irresistible to turtle gators and winged raptors.
All right, let's go back to the phones and talk to... Oh, look at that. We got through all of the Patreon supporters there. So if you're a Patreon supporter, you can jump to the head of the line, put the number on the screen, 708-866-1737. In lieu of that, let's talk to Steven from Texas. Steven has a theory. Hello, Steven. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Hello, Steven.
Hello.
Hey. Hello there.
Hello. Hey, I'm here.
How you doing, buddy?
Got to get that
Chut.
real fast.
Chut.
Hey, not bad. First-time caller. So I want to get this crazy.
Oh, first-time caller. Give you a little bell.
For one of them callers that I've had for quite a while. I think
because you're a first-time caller. I don't have a bell. Can't hear.
You can't hear?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I think. I think the armor is going to be Omega. And
the armorer is going to be Omega.
Yes.
The armor is the armor is the armor. The armor Omega is Omega. The armor is the armor.
Look at how old Boba Fett is.
Do that crossover.
The armor could be the
same.
Omega is going to age the same as Boba Fett. You got to have the kid somewhere. I mean, the Empire's looking for her. She can go put on a little Mandalorian helmet and live on Mandalore for the rest of her happy life.
What makes her a Mandalorian?
So it gets blown to shreds.
What makes her a Mandalorian?
Oh, she could have been a foundling when she was dropped off on Mandalore.
But she's the Bad Batch had possession of her. She was never dropped off on Mandalore.
Well, yeah,
there's no way.
In the future.
I know, but it's already been pretty well established. You know, she's got to be 11 or 12 by now. I think that's beyond the age for a foundling. I think that's. Listen, I love you, man, but no way. Usually, I don't shoot down speculation like that, and if you want to hold on to that, that's fine. But
all right, I got to ask the question though. I have to ask the question, Steven, is what is fueling the desire to have the armorer, either the armorer or Omega, take a bigger role than just being Omega or the armorer? What's fueling that?
I'll tell you what's fueling that. He watched The Mandalorian and Bad Batch right after
the armorer play a bigger
today and had this idea.
More than just the armorer. Than sitting around being like a blacksmith child. Now she's a blacksmith herself. I don't know.
You think that there needs to be more to the armorer? All right. Well, let me throw this out at you. Did Bo-Katan really see a Mythosaur, or was it all an illusion?
I think she saw one.
A real one?
I want to smoke some peyote on the way down.
I don't. Maybe there's something in those waters, those living waters.
Yeah, something in the magical water, you know.
That's why they call them magical waters. All right. So you think she actually saw one? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
We're going to take a poll. We're going to see what our callers think. And is she still suspicious? What was that?
She's not as suspicious.
Not as suspicious?
Not as tough. She's 50-50.
50-50.
She's still in it for herself, I think.
Yeah.
I think she's kind of getting a little crush on Mando.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe sees herself as an adopted mom to a kid or something.
Could be. All right. Thanks, Steven.
I don't
appreciate the call, buddy.
I don't think Orthodox Mandalorians seek out those type of relationships. I think they're part of their group.
Are they celibate too, like the Jedi?
Yeah. Again,
No
the
fun in
parallels. The parallels. That's why I think I'm talking specifically about the children of the Watch, and I think their Orthodox ways prevent them from carrying on with relationships. I think that their only relationship is to be to the creed, and it's very similar into the way Jedi relationships can corrupt them. Same thing with Mandalorians, because we saw Din get tempted in season 1. He was tempted by the villager with the spatchka. Remember? And she was getting kind of close to him, and she even moved. She tried to remove his helmet, and he stopped her, because this is the way. You got to keep the helmet on, and there's no room for those. I mean, they're not even allowed to eat together, for crying out loud. What makes you think that they're?
What else can they not do together? It'd make things difficult. There's no question.
The
Skywriter says
the Foundlings keep their culture growing. That's how they do it.
That's how they do it. They don't have to procreate biologically. Skywriter says,
for them.
Jimmy Mac, Bo and Din get married. They have many younglings and bring back the glory of Mandalore. The end.
Nah, it's not going to happen. Omega isn't the armor. See, I think now he's got me thinking this way. I think the armorer has more of a history as being a Mandalorian, because of the spikes on her helmet.
Yeah, you keep saying that, and you know what? I've worked with you long enough to know not to discount those ideas that you have, especially when you say them multiple times.
Yeah,
I think you might be onto something there. And I'll tell you what, man. I said this earlier on a previous show, and I understand there's like a certain fatigue with Darth Maul, and he was showing up in weird places like Solo, and I was like, why is he here? But man, if there's any place, even Rebels and other things, but if there's any place that I would actually like to see Maul show up a little bit, would be in The Mandalorian, because at least in terms of flashbacks, because I really want to see some live action takes on that whole time period. Bo, Satine, Bo's dad, Maul, Mandalorian, Armorer. I think it would be amazing. It would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be. I would love to see it.
A few more super chats we got here. Let's go with Tanya. Tanya says, Din ate the Pog soup with his helmet on, so why did they have to separate at the campfire? What's up with that? Hashtag deep thoughts. I think it depends, Tanya, on what they're eating. With the soup, he was able just to kind of pull the helmet up and slurp it. But I think they were eating meat of some sort at this campfire. So I don't think that they were able to just slurp it. It's something that you had to, I don't know, cut up maybe. There's a reason.
No, I mean, they all separate, that it's just part of their routine.
Yeah.
And they all know this. So they get served the food and everyone goes off and finds their own corner of the cave.
It's like Thanksgiving.
They just, it's kind of.
Eventually, we all
split up. What kind of Thanksgiving? Everyone drifts off. Where's Grandpa? He's sleeping in front of the TV with his belt buckle undone.
And his helmet off.
That would be
holy crap.
That would be Paz. Yeah, that's having your helmet off. Is having the belt buckle undone. Where's Paz? Where's that little
Paz
head?
is passed out in front of the TV watching football.
So, but I mean, they all know the traditions and the routines and everything. So when a bunch of Mandalorians are together, a bunch of children of the watch, they all know, hey, we've been given our food, and now we go off to find our own place to eat it. Being presented soup just by yourself from non-believers, why don't you just pull the helmet up and slurp it down? Let's not make a big show of this, get off and go marching off to eat his soup. I got no time for that sometimes.
Here's Daniel. Daniel says, Ahmed's redemption had me all choked up. I was half expecting to see Jar Jar waiting in the cockpit of that Naboo craft. Show looks slick, boys. Some special modifications. Talking about us. Thanks for fanning the flames of fandom. May the force be with you. I don't know if you're talking about us or you're talking about The Mandalorian, but either way, we'll say thanks.
Yeah. He said, show looks slick, boys.
Yeah, so it must be
after
us.
I would have preferred he said boyos, as long as we're talking about Ahmed Best.
We keep it in.
So just keep that in mind next time you guys super chat. We're the boyos.
Oh, boyos. All right, back to the phones. We got Chloe from New York, a Patreon member. Hello, Chloe. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Hello, Chloe. Chloe, are you there? Chloe, come to your phone.
Chloe, can you hear me?
Hey, Chloe.
Hi, Chloe.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
Good. What you got for us?
Grogu cannot be part of the Mandalorian tribe. Like, he can't be part of the Creed.
Wait. He cannot be a Mandalorian? That's what you're saying? Ever?
I don't think he should.
Why not?
Well, first of all, you can't put a helmet on that guy. He's too cute.
He is too cute.
And
it would be a waste. Waste of latex.
It would. It would. And I don't think it's a right path for him. And I'm worried that Din Djarin thinks that because he left Luke, that now that he's returned to him, that he thinks like, oh, he must want to be a Mandalorian like me. And
yeah. Yes.
maybe he does. And like, I hope he's not getting that idea because, Grogu should choose his own path. And, Luke let him and said, you can either be a Jedi and stay here with me, but you might never see your friend again. Or you can return to your friend and do whatever you want.
See, I'm not digging. You know what, Chloe? You're getting me thinking about this whole idea of orthodoxy and sort of the fanaticism. I thought what we learned coming out of the prequel era is that you can't do away with attachments or you end up like Anakin Skywalker, that it was going to pave the way for a new era. Now you got Luke dealing in his absolutes. It's like, hey, you can either be a fireman like me or you can be a baker like your old man. And he's like, well, I don't know. I like being a fireman, but why can't I live with my dad? He's a baker. And then you got Din Djarin that's like, well, you're living with me. You're under my roof. You're going to be a baker. He's like, I don't know. The fireman thing was kind of cool. But yeah, I'm with you. It is kind of frustrating that he's stuck based on who he's living with.
I know, which should not be the circumstance for in real life or Star Wars world. And look, being a Mandalorian is probably totally cool.
Yeah.
And great. And, being a Jedi is also great, but, there's a lot of not so great rules with being a Jedi.
I know. I don't know. Which would you rather be? Would you rather be a Jedi, according to Luke Skywalker and his rules, or would you rather be a Mandalorian according to the Armorer's rules?
I cannot handle keeping my helmet on all the time.
Yeah,
right.
Sweat.
Me too. I'm with you. I'm with you, Chloe, on that one.
I don't know if I could handle
being a Jedi. Yeah.
being around Luke all the time either. So
I saw Jimmy Mack try to wear a Star Wars mask once. It lasted about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Good
We were going to
deal.
go on stage. I was going to go on stage with a Bith head. And Tom Spina put that thing on me, and there's this Velcro flap in the back, and he closed that thing in. And here I am in this latex globe looking around like, oh my God, get this off me. I get a little weirded out by
I had no idea. I
confined
worked with
spaces.
Mac for many years before that. I had no idea that he had a bit of claustrophobia. But man, and this was no cheapy, dime store.
No, it was a real deal.
It was a real deal mask, and I thought he was gonna rip it to pieces, getting it off of his head. I'm like, Mac, that's worth more than your life.
Oh my God. But yeah, I can't get under beds either, forget about it.
Well, thanks, Chloe. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. I'm with you. I don't like the fact that poor Grogu is being pushed into these various professions by domineering father figures like Luke Skywalker and Jaren.
Those
Let's
guys,
go.
they have no clout.
Right. All right. Let's go with Dominic here. Super chat. He says, Ezra is the key for Grogu. He will train Grogu because he will allow him to embrace his adoptive family and the Force like He will allow him to embrace his adoptive family and the Force like Kanan let Ezra embrace his family and the Force and speak to the Mythosaur. Could Ezra, as postulated here by Dominic, be a missing link in Grogu's destiny? Jimmy Mack.
I think there's definitely potential in the story going in that direction. I think that's a good way at looking at the pieces on the playing board and moving them around in a way that might pay off. Because I think we are going to see tons of crossover with what's going on this season of The Mandalorian into the Ahsoka show. And all speculation and some reports are saying that Ezra is definitely going to be a part of the Ahsoka series. So it's adding up. It's adding up. I like the way Dominic's thinking. I think that's sharp. A good way to connect the dots, and I see potential in the story going in that direction.
All right, this super chat has Jimmy Mack written all over it because I don't know. John is asking, so Padme helped Jedi escape? ? And do you think they meet up with Quinlan Vos, who we know helped Jedi hide? I defer my time to Jimmy Mack on this one.
Okay. No, Padme did not help Jedi escape. No, that was that. I believe that the Naboo ship that we saw in Coruscant belongs to Jar Jar flippin' Binks. Okay, so put that in your pipe and smoke it. Padme, isn't she getting force choked on Mustafar at this time? She can't be helping no Jedi escape. She, as soon as they saw the flames in the Jedi Temple, she had her pilot, Captain Typho, bring her ship to her, and she and 3PO boarded it alone. Well, of course, Obi-Wan was a stowaway, but still, she was out of there. And so there has to be another Naboo starship, one that is being used by a Naboo senator because, excuse me, as I said, that one guard was a Senate guard. And knowing that he was a Senate guard, I was thinking to myself, well, who's the senator? And all arrows point at Jar Jar Binks. So I don't see Padme offering any sort of underground railroad for the Jedi.
I don't think she would have time.
As it sounds.
Yeah, she just
there was no
time.
There was no time. There's no time in the story for that to occur because she is at her apartment and then she is on the planet Mustafar.
Yeah.
And that's the last place she goes until she dies on Polis Massa.
What about Quinlan Vos? You think there's a future of seeing a Quinlan Vos show up in one of these series at some point? These post?
Well, Favreau and Filoni, they've shown they have no fear in reintroducing expanded universe characters and elements. Quinlan Vos would be one of the more famous and popular expanded universe characters of all time. I mean, he pretty much held down the Dark Horse comic series when they had the license, and he'd been most recently referenced in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So we know he survived Order 66 at least, and exists throughout the dark times. Is he still alive all this time later? Well, he would be an old man, we would presume.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
he would be an old man by this point on the timeline. So I don't know how active he naturally would be in the Mandalorian era, but we do know that during the dark times that he is alive and he's active. He is helping Jedi escape through that underground railroad.
Let's go to Tim from New Jersey. Tim's got an interesting question here. Hey, Tim, you're on with Rebel Force Radio.
Timmy.
Chut, boyos.
Chut.
Boyos. I like the boyos. Thank you.
So I was in the Army. I followed direction well. So second time caller, my wife was the Goldberg crier.
Yes.
I'm watching all Star Wars chronological order. Start March, end in June. New Hope happens on May the 4th. But I just watched the Mandalorian corruption episodes from the Clone Wars. And Cadet Corky calls Satine Auntie, which means how many creases are there? Could it be Bo-Katan's kid? And like the movie, the old Burt Lancaster movie, The Flame and the Arrow, does Satine either take her child to raise him as a pacifist, or does, like, and that drives Bo-Katan to join the Death Watch, or she was flirting with the Death Watch, so they decided to take her child from her. But we don't know what happens to Cadet Corky. Maybe he gets killed in the Great Mandalorian Purge. So what ends up happening is when, say, the Armorer and Bo-Katan end up, having a power struggle, the Armorer can bring up that she abandoned her real biological child. So even though she's seen the Mythosaur, there's a reason for a split in that covert.
Oh, because she has she has scandal, so that's why her Mythosaur sighting might be rendered invalid.
Right. I mean, it's a culture where you have to even raise foundlings, like their own children. So if you actually have a child that you abandoned, because again, the Armorer earlier said that they survived because they weren't on Mandalore. They were on Concordia.
Right.
So the fact that she gave up her child for Mandalore, he was present for the Purge, he got killed, drives her, because there's something happened other than, Mandalore got crushed. So maybe Bo-Katan, one part of the creed is you take care of foundlings. So that means, you should take care of your own children even more. From watching that, though, so Jar Jar Binks was a representative, not a senator. Maybe
now wait a second.
Government.
He did stand in for Padme when an attempt was made on her life. So by standing in for her, he would have access to all of the spoils of the position, including that Naboo ship. So there.
Well, like a guy, yeah.
And he did serve in the Senate.
Something happened.
He served in the Senate representing the gun.
And whatever happened with Corky.
I totally forgot about Corky. I totally forgot about Corky. So Corky refers to Satine as Auntie, but there's no confirmation that it's Bo's child.
Right.
So there could be another sister, could be a brother. We don't know.
Tim, you're throwing some good ideas out there. This is something I never considered. We do not know. I think throwing Corky into the mix might be a little confusing at this point, but you never know.
Right. But as a soldier, though, when you were in Afghanistan, Iraq, the NCOs were always telling you to keep your helmet on. So someone in the writing process that came up with the idea that Mandalorians have to keep their helmet on at all times, it's someone that spent time in Iraq and Afghanistan or training for it, where someone was always yelling at you to put your helmet back on.
Well, that sure the hell wasn't Filoni, I can tell you that.
True that. But yeah,
Tim,
I'm 2 inches shorter for having to wear that damn thing 5 times.
Well, I tell you what, we appreciate it. We appreciate you, appreciate your service, and really appreciate you calling and being part of the conversation tonight. Thank you so much. Those were some really great thoughts. Awesome ideas, dude.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, Corky Kreese. Totally forgot. I got to go back. Jim, did you say that you recently rewatched some of that arc on the Clone Wars? The
not the corruption arc. No, I didn't rewatch that.
I need to go back and look at some of that stuff.
Secret Songs 20 in the chat says Bo was barely 20 in the Clone Wars, and Corky was a teenager. So it seems like a long shot.
Yeah,
for him being her kid.
But there's another Kreese out there, and his fate is unknown, right? We don't.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, what happened to the Mandalorians who lived as pacifists? Were they all? They were probably all wiped out, is my guess. I think Corky, the night of 1,000 tears. I think one of those tears were shed for old Corkaroo, because I mean, as pacifists, you don't stand a chance against those TIE bombers. So
yeah,
if Corky was there, Corky is toast.
Poor
Bert
Corky.
Cork.
We hardly knew ye. All right. Super chat from Turtle Wars. Thanks, Turtle Wars. A regular fixture here on the after show chats. Here's John. John says, sorry, John already did that one. Maverick Pilgrim says, yeah, what was that flare in his robes? He's talking about Ahmed, Kelleran, Beck. What was that flare in the robes? Old Republic vibes. Librarian ? I definitely think that when you say librarian, yes, I think it was more of that sort of academy. Maybe some of the teachers might have had some sort of designation for the younglings to know that that's a teacher. And
I think, I think Joe Castanew has some ornate cloaks on, and she is a librarian.
Right.
So I guess that makes sense. But I was looking at, and I was like, oh, that's some High Republic stuff going on there. Because they have the robes. The Jedi robes are all gold and everything.
Yeah. I think that I always thought that Jaka Sanu was, one of those that, she was a Jedi. She was Force sensitive, but she was a librarian. I mean, come on. I didn't really see.
She was a librarian.
She was.
Librarian Jedi. Maddie in the chat says if Filoni ever listened to this, he'd be laughing, going overboard, and I'm loving it. Well, guess what, Maddie? Dave Filoni has a long history of listening to our crazy conversations, and sometimes it actually influences some of the things he's doing. So Dave definitely has been one to listen to Rebel Force Radio over the years.
Here's another super chat. This is from David Frizzell III. Pick the next stop. The Covert returns to Mandalore after hearing about the Mythosaur, or Din receives a distress call from Grief regarding Captain Greenshart attacking Navarro.
Okay, yeah. Well,
still needs a marshal.
Greenshart. Sounds like my weekend after St. Patrick's Day.
I think he's talking about Gorian Shard. Green Shard. I love it. Thanks, David. That's awesome, dude. So what would you rather see? The Covert heading to Mandalore to try and repopulate the system, or get a little Grief Karga action and bringing Mando back into the fray there in Navarro?
I think we're going to get both this season.
Yeah.
I really do. And that's based on things I've seen in the trailer. Obviously, we know there's big Mando firepower happening on Navarro at some point in the season. You can watch the trailers and you'll still get glimpses of scenes we have yet to see so far halfway through the season. And also, there is another return to the planet Mandalore, because in the trailer, you see a cockpit perspective of a domed city of Mandalore. Now, it could be a flashback. So maybe me jumping to the conclusion that they return to Mandalore is a done deal might not be 100% correct, but we are going to at least see more Mandalore. And I think they're going to go back. I do think they're going to go back.
Yeah. Moni G, she says, don't talk that way about librarians, Jason. They're Jedi and they know things. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's a force power for Jocasta Nu. Thinking of
Ghostbusters.
You
through the Force.
Yeah, right. All right, Jonathan is on the line from San Diego. Hey, Jonathan,
Johnny.
you're on with Rebel Force Radio.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
All right, doing great. Talking about Mandalorian, Chapter 20, The Foundling.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was really kind of disappointed. They had some amazing setup, and I'm talking about a particular scene. I loved the episode as a whole. With Pod, Bo-Katan was really close to pre-Vizsla. We know some stuff went down. It never seemed like she actually betrayed the Vizslas in the end. But how does a descendant, react to her, especially when she was cast out? I know she's in a different position now, but I would have loved to have seen an interaction between them, sizing each other up, seeing where they stand as those two houses have aged with so much history.
I like
together.
what you're saying.
And
I like what you're saying. And we got a hint of that. We got a hint of that at the end of last episode when Paz saw Bo-Katan and he called her Night Owl. And there was a certain put down element of that. He was saying that to her in kind of a nasty way, Night Owl. And so I think some of what you are hinting at was indicated in the last episode.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see them expand on it and where Bo's going. But honestly, I feel like the armorer is egging her on there at the end. And she's like, "Oh, you saw it? Prove it."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
This is the way.
Yeah.
Follow the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the visions are not, it's not uncommon. It's not like Bo-Katan is the first one to come back and say, "Hey, guess what I saw?" But they chalk it up as being a vision, which is promoted by the magical waters of the mines. So, and that's their faith. So they have no reason to doubt Bo, but they don't necessarily fully believe that what she saw is reality, that it actually is flesh and blood. To Bo, it was. To us as viewers, it sure was. So what is it? They have to return to Mandalore.
It's almost, it's like, well, what can they do if we do believe you? We need to follow the prophecy, and that's like the one will write it and claim it and be in charge.
Yes, and unite the Mandalorians. Bo is definitely angling for that position. Now, whether or not that requires her to ride into town wielding the Darksaber or not, that's yet to be seen. But I think there is going to be a showdown between Din and Bo for the Darksaber. And I think that's been telegraphed since the end of season 2.
Yeah. Jonathan, thanks, buddy. Appreciate the call. Good thoughts. Everybody had great thoughts this week.
Yeah.
It's just been a ton of fun, as it is each and every week here, the Mandalorian After Show. What a blast. What a blast. I tell you what, one of the unsung heroes, and we're going to sing a little bit for him, is our call screener and the official RFR program observer, Tyler Page. Tyler, thanks as always, buddy. A great roster of calls on the switchboard this week. Lots of topics. I'm going to throw one at you right here. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Did Bo really see a Mythosaur? What do you think?
She totally did.
Totally did?
I think that was real.
I don't know, man. Armor is just in my head. Now I'm doubting what I saw with my own eyes.
Yeah. This is the way.
Anything else that you want to comment on? Tyler Page.
One question I have a question and a funny thought, is what is Sabine going to do when she comes back and Bo is, kind of part of this cult, and what does Sabine think of them at that time? I don't know.
Sabine.
I think that reaction.
Yeah, what is she?
That reaction will be.
How is she gonna? What role is she gonna play in all of this, and what are her thoughts gonna be?
Yeah, I don't know. It's something down the line. The other thing I was thinking is, Michael Jackson almost got cast as Jar Jar Binks, I think. And what if What if that sliding door just scrolled open and it was just him sitting there?
Oh, man.
Instead of Thomas? Yeah. George knew what he was doing. So.
George knew what he was doing. I think somewhere on the RFR YouTube channel, there lurks a long-lost screen test of Michael Jackson. You look it up, folks. If you're new to this program, look it up. Michael Jackson screen test, Jar Jar Binks, Rebel Force Radio. I think you'll find it, and you won't be disappointed. Our microphones were there all the way back in the late 1990s. Well, Tyler, we appreciate you. Thanks so much for hanging with us, buddy. We'll see you tomorrow for more After Show. We've got a double feature of Bad Batch goodness. We got to catch up on last week's episode plus this week's episode. So we'll see you in a little bit. Thanks, pal. Always a pleasure. Tyler Page. Jimmy Mack, final thoughts. The Foundling, episode 4, chapter 20, season 3. What say you?
Wowie, wow, Jason. For such a short episode, this one packed a wallop. And I got to admit, I'm watching these episodes first thing in the morning, got my cup of coffee. I come running down the steps like it's Christmas Day, got fresh Star Wars. And then I watch the episode, and after this one, I'm like, oh, God, what did the fans think of this? I loved it. What did the fans think? And I was so relieved to see that almost across the board, people loved this episode. And I'll tell you why. You remember when the prequels came out and original trilogy fans were, at times frosted about what they saw? They felt like it was inconsistent compared to the beauty of the original trilogy and everything. And critics used to say, well, these overgrown fanboys want to have the same experience they had back in 1977 when they're 8 years old, and it's impossible to go back there and recreate those feelings. After seeing an episode like The Foundling, I think that anybody who's ever said that is 1,000% wrong. It's just the cream rises to the top, and this episode, there's a lot of cream in that cup. Couple things that I didn't get to. There was an Apocalypse Now tribute, if nobody caught it. Very similar to the one that J.J. Abrams put into The Force Awakens of the ship flying into the sunsets. There you go, Jason. You had wow. Amazing. And it's shot kind of the same way where you can feel the heat of the sun and see the ripples of the heat on the horizon, just like they did in Apocalypse Now with the helicopters, just like J.J. Abrams did also as a tribute to Apocalypse Now in The Force Awakens. He did it with TIE fighters. Here we're seeing it with winged raptors, and I believe those things are called Mandalorian gauntlet ships. I can't remember 100% sure. Grogu has flashbacks of repressed memories as the armor is forging his new piece of armor. And that's just like Din in season 1. The armorer says the forge can reveal weaknesses. So I was like, does she mean in the Beskar or in the warrior himself or herself? It's a magical process. What's happening here? Are the Mandalorians tapping into the Force maybe a little bit? I'm telling you, the parallels between the Mandalorians and the Jedi are becoming more and more obvious to me. It was cool to see bark speeders in this episode, stormtroopers on bark speeders. The first time we saw those were in Revenge of the Sith, and then we saw them again in the Clone Wars in the episode Lightsaber Lost. And the bark, those bark speeders are pretty cool. I've always liked those. Okay, for as much as I love this episode, there are a couple missed opportunities. The first one, Mando's climbing the cliff face. There was a missed opportunity to present some sort of challenge or adversity. They simply climbed up that mountain without a threat at all. And I thought, why didn't they take advantage of that situation to present some sort of adversity to these guys? It was kind of a boring climb at the end of the day. I liked watching Kirk and Spock climb the cliff on Star Trek V. I thought that was more dynamic. with the anti-grav boots, you know. Here I go talking truck again. What's the matter with me?
Because it's
another
there.
missed opportunity. See what, Jay?
Why are you climbing El Capitan? Because it's there.
Smug. Okay, missed opportunity. Another one. When the winged raptor coughed up the Mando kid. I mean, come on, cover him with some spit and slime and stuff. He came out there dry as a bone. I don't care if he is Jimmy Kimmel's nephew. He came out dry as a bone. Cover that kid in slime. Take him over to the Nickelodeon studios and give him a once-over. I just couldn't believe, because they even show the raptor, like, cough it up, and he comes out, and he's like, you know, it's like he came through that on episode 1 of Phantom Menace, when they get to the Gungan city, and they walk through that membrane, and it dries them out like a squeegee. Remember, you know what I'm talking about? Maybe the winged raptor has a mouth like that. The winged raptor also became a meal for Turtle Gator, so it was good to see him appear in this episode again. And I thought it was interesting that Bo-Katan achieved the highest honor of the Creed, saving a youngling, thus reinforcing the influence you will eventually have over the children of the Watch, and that influence will lead them to change their ways when she takes over and unites the Mandalorian while riding atop a Mythosaur. And so we're seeing this first evolution of her influence on them start to really build a foundation for what's going to come in the future. I did like Bo's Beskar armor pauldron request. She wanted to get the old Mythosaur skull put on there, and then that's what prompted her confession that she actually saw one. But I found it very interesting that the armorer said she can replace the pauldron, but not with the modern refinements. So I assume she's talking about those electronics we see her putting on the flip side of these pauldrons. We've seen it a few times. And so this has to be some kind of foreshadowing. What does it mean? I think in the future, Bo's going to take a blaster bolt to her shoulder, and it's going to hurt like hell at the very least. There's a reason why they're letting us know that her new armor pauldron doesn't have the modern refinements. And so I expect to see a payoff for that in the next episode or two. Cool to see V-Wings in action in this episode. Again, something else that was introduced in Revenge of the Sith. We got double V-Wings this week. If you want to take a look at the Bad Batch, which I really suggest you don't blow off this week. It was fantastic. We'll be here tomorrow night talking about it. Thank you, everyone, for calling in. We didn't hear from Blake. Nobody needs to worry. He had a baseball game tonight. His dad, Brian, checked in and told me that he would not be able to make the live stream, so no Blake's takes this week, but Blake is safe. He's okay. And he sends his chuts to the RFR community. Nice to see Brendan Wayne and Lateef. I've been meaning to say this. Nice to see Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder get co-starring credits this season of The Mandalorian. I've been wanting to say this since episode 1. Prior seasons, the only credits they got was when the screen shrinks the font so small you can barely read it, and they were credited as doubles for The Mandalorian. They're getting co-starring credits this season. Well deserved. Damon Lindelof, not in this episode.
Certainly not, and likely not to be mentioned at Star Wars Celebration. All right.
This is the way.
This is the way. Waiting for me to win
$50 for Swank.
From FJ. Hey, thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. Again, we'll be back tomorrow night, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Bad Batch After Show. That's each and every Thursday night while the Bad Batch is running on Disney Plus, 9 o'clock p.m. We've got a double feature. We're going to be looking at last week's episode plus this week's episode. Of course, we'll be back next week with more Mando After Show, 9 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday. Please, if you are new to the program, just discovered us, know that we do have a podcast. You can check it out in your podcatcher of choice, but please subscribe to us here on YouTube and check out some of our archives span a decade and a half plus and going and continuing and going strong. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The official website for all things and everything, RFR is rebelforceradio.com. Once again, we love to have you subscribe to the program. Love to have the comments, the reviews, all that. Just one rule, please.
Make them good.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow. More After Show, looking at Bad Batch. Next week, more Mandalorian. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.